What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down why tomorrow is going to be an absolutely massive day for all Tesla investors because we have the notorious Investor Day coming out. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the news affecting Tesla, as we do have some very bullish pieces of news that came out, what's going on with the overall market and how it may affect Tesla, what the data and technicals are telling us, and what you should be watching for tomorrow. And before I break anything down, though, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each valued at up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends today, so make sure you check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So Tesla was actually down about 0.92% for the day. I did mention in my previous video that I expected Tesla to get a nice push into the open. That's what ended up happening. We did actually break above 210 for just a short period of time. And then I mentioned to you guys we'd likely see a bit of a pullback because of the market underperforming, and Tesla could even turn kind of red temporarily. Then I mentioned to you guys that later on, as the day went on, Tesla would likely continue to push and start fighting for that like 209 level. That's what actually happened. And I mentioned that Tesla would likely end up closing somewhat green or very flat. We ended up closing down about 0.92% because at the last hour, Tesla ended up selling off with the markets. So it did close a little bit lower than I expected. And right now, we do have a bearish pattern developing. We do actually have a head and shoulders as of right now, right here. And the overall market might actually help contribute to Tesla closing a little bit red tomorrow, maybe pushing back a little bit to fill this gap. That's very possible, and the odds are favoring something like that to happen. However, it's not the end of the world if that does end up happening, because the technicals are telling us this. But like I said before, it's not the end of the world. Not just because of the fact that Tesla's future is bright, but also because of the fact that Tesla's also going to be reacting to Investor Day. After Investor Day is over tomorrow, Tesla could still make a very big move to the upside. It still could happen, but we're just going to have to wait and see based off what ends up being announced. So when is Investor Day? It's going to be happening tomorrow at about 3 p.m. Central Time. So right after the market closes, it's going to be kicking off. And we are going to see some very big announcements to be covered. You could actually stream this on either like CNBC, other parts of the internet, or even I think Tesla's YouTube channel should be streaming this. I'm pretty sure they should be. And it's going to be very, very interesting to watch. Now, when it comes to the big events, one of the things I mentioned yesterday is too much hype is not the best of things. There's so much talk about a $25,000 vehicle. Oh, Tesla's vision for the next decade. Yes, all of this is fantastic, but please remember, investors tend to have very, very high expectations for Tesla. And if Tesla has a good report that does not meet every expectation, it could still lead to a bit of a drop in the share price, right? That sometimes happens to Tesla even after some major earnings. So please be very, very cautious. I'm not going to go over every detail for the preview, but I do want to mention some important quotes. Some of the analysts mentioned that the Tesla Master Plan 3 is the path to a fully sustainable energy future for Earth, and it's going to be presented on March 1st. They mentioned that the future is still going to be very bright. We may get some updates about the Gigafactory in Texas and also the production of the Tesla semis. I do believe that's very possible, as Tesla did make a new investment in Nevada, investing over $3.6 billion for their production. We're likely going to see more and more news about some new technologies that are required for the mass adoption of EVs at far lower prices, according to other analysts. Now, that's also very possible and very likely that Tesla has a plan for it. Once again, there's no guarantee they're actually going to unveil what the model will look like in very specific details. We don't know yet, which is why we should not solely just, bet on it actually happening just yet. On top of that, I want to note the fact that we're going to learn more about their strengths, their supply chains, their integration, and how they're going to actually produce the battery technology in a much more efficient manner. We're also going to learn more things about production, how they're going to meet their expectations of almost 2 million deliveries this year, right? That's what their expectations are, and also how Tesla is going to be affected by the macroeconomic factors that are going on right now. So there are a lot of things we're going to learn about. Once again, I went over the majority of them. And the last thing I wanted to mention is we're gonna have to hear what else Elon Musk says about Tesla's futures for expansion. We might actually hear more news about this. One thing that's a huge piece of news that just came out is Tesla's going to be building a new factory in Monterrey, Mexico. I do apologize if I pronounced that wrong. It's in the northern area of Mexico. And I think this is very, very bullish news for the company going forward because more and more people keep on learning about this company. More people keep learning about expansions, and investors are very excited for this. Now, one thing that's also very important is there's so many other car manufacturers in Mexico as well, like Mercedes and I think Ford as well. So with all these companies out there, Tesla's actually just joining a very big market out there, and this could actually benefit the company from an economic standpoint too. Now, congratulations to Elon Musk. He's reclaimed the title of the world's richest man. However, this is just the richest man on paper, and this is just based off reports and etc. But congratulations to Elon Musk. I still want to say that because he does deserve it, in my opinion. He has done very incredible work. This is just making all the headlines. I just wanted to mention it. And we're actually seeing more news about Tesla opening a gigafactory in northern Mexico. So we're going to get more details about this. This will really help them going forward. And who knows, maybe they might produce a new model at this new factory. We'll just have to wait and see. But if they do end up doing that, once again, very, very bullish news in my opinion. On top of that, Tesla is going to charge $450 to upgrade the older EVs for the CCS adapter usage. Once again, this is something that's very necessary for many Tesla owners because of the fact that it allows them to charge their vehicles at other public networks outside of the supercharger network. And on top of that, I believe they're saying that the adapter is available on their website for $175. But if you have an older Tesla, you might want to opt out for about a $450 retrofit so that you could actually use the different adapters, right? So that's really very dependent on what users want to do. But I just wanted to note that Tesla is still showing many ways for people with the older versions to upgrade their cars to the latest technologies. Now, when it comes to earnings, we don't have too much coming out right now. I think AMC just reported their earnings, and tomorrow we have NEO reporting earnings as well. So, very big week for EVs. I can't wait to see what NEO ends up doing. And after that, we have some retailers out there, not really too much. There's not much economic data coming out tomorrow as well until Thursday when we have some jobless claims numbers coming out. Now, for Tesla's inventory levels, they're still very low. They've been increasing a little bit, but overall it's still very low, which tells me demand is still relatively high, which is good for Tesla. And then finally, the volume for the day was actually a little bit low. I have it right here. It's about 152 million. So Tesla's starting to lose some volume. This is kind of like showing some signs of some buyer exhaustion. And this is actually increasing the odds of Tesla slowing down going forward, at least temporarily. Now, this does increase the odds of a slowdown tomorrow as well. It's not guaranteed though, because once again, there could be lots of hype and there could be like new buyers stepping in at the last minute, trying to FOMO into Tesla. But right now, from a technical standpoint, it's not really supporting that. I'm going to show you that in a couple of minutes. And then finally, looking at the overall short volume percentage, this is actually relatively low relative to the price, meaning it's about 50% right now. So we got about 50% of the volume starting to short Tesla, lots of selling pressure. And at the same time, it was the same thing vice versa. So we did see some buying. And that's why Tesla did end up closing pretty flat. I know we were down almost 1%, but that's not really that significant, right? So it wasn't too horrible. Overall, Tesla did outperform the market, at least to some degree. We have a relatively high price price ratio. And I'm going to look at the short interest. Are we seeing an increase? We saw a slight increase, but nothing too significant. So we're not actually seeing shorts piling in as of right now. This makes me wonder, could the shorts just be waiting for some big event? Could they be waiting for investor day before they pile in? Could they know something that Tesla's about to make a big move to the upside, which is why they're not shorting? Who knows what they're thinking, right? This could also all be a coincidence. In my opinion, it's just best to wait and see what's announced first, because if Tesla makes an announcement and the share price ends up underperforming, shorts could actually take advantage of that a little bit later. But we'll have to wait and see. What does tend to happen though is right before the big events, maybe like starting tomorrow, there is a chance more shorts might start piling in. And they often do this just to bet against Tesla, also because they may be betting that Tesla's gonna, come down. They could also do it for many reasons, for hedging different positions out there. So many institutions maybe already accumulated a bunch of Tesla shares, they're still holding them. Maybe some are going to start selling tomorrow because they want to start securing profits before the big event. Because holding shares and stock over a big event typically is risky, right? It's a typical risky endeavor, and that's the reason why they like to hedge and mitigate risks during times like this. So they may start to reposition their assets. Now, for Tesla, what am I seeing from a technical standpoint? Now, Tesla, in my opinion, it was on a bit of a downtrend, right? We got a nice breakout, but since we broke out, we actually have been slowing down a bit, and the MACD on the hourly time frame is actually showing some weakening momentum. Now, on top of that, when you look at the daily, I often like to look at the daily on Tesla because we do actually have an MACD crossover still. It's still showing some weakness, just a little bit, but it's not too horrible. And all of this could change depending on tomorrow. But I do want to note that the overall market is actually having an effect on Tesla. On the 5 minute time frame, let me first close my EMA so it's a little easier to see. Look at how the market actually responded, not just responded, but impacted Tesla. I'm going to keep Tesla on my left side. I'm going to bring up SPY on the right. This could also work with the triple Q, but notice something very interesting. Notice how Tesla got a really nice gap up in the very beginning of the day. Whereas when we're looking at SPY in the very beginning of the day, SPY was pretty flat, pushing back and forth and back and forth. Tesla was outperforming, and then Tesla got a bit of a decline, and so did SPY. SPY actually declined a little bit in the very beginning, but then both SPY and Tesla began to rally. They actually rallied together. You guys can see this. And then near the end of the day, they both got a bit of a sell off. And then SPY ended up closing somewhat red. We actually got a big red candle at the very end of the day to close this even harder. And Tesla also closed a little bit red with the market. So you could see the market is actually impacting Tesla to a large extent. If you look at the triple Q, notice how we got a nice push up in the very beginning, similar to how Tesla gapped up. They both actually declined as the day went on, very similarly. Then they both got a nice uptrend as the day went on. And actually, QQQ and the NASDAQ were being dragged by Tesla and many other tech stocks out there. Even Apple played a big role. And they both got the sell off at the very end. So this is telling us that the overall market does affect Tesla. I'm not just showing you some chart from like Tradeitics and telling you that's the reality of it. The actual data suggests that the market does affect how Tesla moves. You can see the comparison between Tesla and SPY right here. There's a big similarity between them. Now, as far as Tesla goes, yes, there are lots of buy ratings from like Wells Fargo, and Tesla does have a tendency of being green only about, let's see, they actually tend to be green only 49% of the time on Wednesdays, so it's not always the best of days for us typically. And once again, it takes a few hours before we become a little bit stronger. But now going back to the technicals, what I'm essentially seeing on Tesla is we do have a possible head and shoulders that's developing on the stock. This could be like a left shoulder. This could be the head at this 211 area. And then we could be forming like a right shoulder right here because Tesla did not manage to break the previous high. If you end up like excluding this top right here, this is basically kind of like a neckline that was forming. So then it's kind of like, okay, now Tesla's in this position where it's beginning to chop a bit. It sold off just a little bit. If this thing gets a break below this like 201, 202 area, then we have to watch this 200 area very carefully. If Tesla does not hold 200, if it fails to hold 200 tomorrow, it's likely going to get smacked all the way down to about 196 or so to actually come all the way down to fill the gap. That's very likely to happen if the market underperforms tomorrow. Now, I know that Tesla was looking very bullish, and I understand that people were, holding on to their Tesla shares for a while. People are just buying in like crazy. Yes, it's awesome, and I do believe Tesla could make a big move because of Investor Day, depending on what is announced. But remember, Investor Day starts tomorrow after the market closes, so Tesla's not going to react until a lot later. So we still have time. Now, as far as SPY goes, from a technical standpoint, this was very tricky to trade today if you guys were trying to trade it because we saw a lot of fake outs. There was actually a fake pump near the very end of the day where SPY went to about 399, then slowly started chopping a bit, and then it got a bit of a sell-off near the final hour. But on the hourly time frame, the MACD is showing us much weakening momentum, and it looks to me like we might see a bit of a pullback, a slight pullback very, very soon. Now, I also want to note to the fact that I think we actually finished filling the gap down here, but we could see us retest the top of this former wedge that this thing was in, which could bring us all the way down to the 395 area very, very soon. So I am seeing signs of a potential pullback tomorrow. This might actually slow Tesla down. On top of that, the VIX, in my opinion, it actually came down to a very critical level. It actually filled or got very close to filling its gap here. To me, it's looking like the VIX might push down a little bit more because the market might get a slight push up in the morning, and then the VIX might try to bounce off 20. We do have some nice support on the VIX around there. If the VIX bounces off 20, we get a small bounce that could be bearish for the markets. It's not that the VIX is like dictating the markets, by the way. I know sometimes I make it seem that way. It's more like this is responding to what SPY is doing, meaning SPY might pump up a little bit as the VIX comes down. Then we might see SPY reject, and SPY and the S&P 500 and market begin to actually downtrend a bit, and then the VIX gets that push to the upside, right? This is basically telling us what could end up happening in the opposite direction. Now, for the triple Q, I just want to note that the triple Q is in a very similar state. We didn't actually fill the gap above here. We came close, but we kind of came short, and we are downtrending a bit. So if the triple Q does end up downtrending with this wedge, we do have the potential to come all the way down to the low 290s. This tells me that there's some weakness in the tech sector in the markets. If there's weakness in tech, it tells me that many other stocks out there, lots of blue chips, may actually be negatively affected, thus bringing down many others out there like Tesla and etc. For Apple, same thing. We're going to likely come down. We haven't, I don't know if we fully filled this gap yet. We came very close to doing so. If that does end up getting filled, we could see Apple base between this 145 to 146 zone. Once again, bearish for the markets. The dollar actually did not go as low as I thought it would. It actually bounced from here. And we're likely going to see this thing try to push up just a little bit, get to this 105 area, and then likely, if it does continue to break past 105, that could be bearish for the stock market. So we're getting lots of bearish signals so far. I want to be very careful when actually calling this because Tesla does have a big event. So for Tesla, what are we watching for? For Tesla, we have major resistance between 215 to 217. And if we break that, then there's 220, right? The 220 to 221 range, that's where the 200 moving average happens to be on the daily. If you're bearish on Tesla, you have to watch that 200 area. If that fails, it's likely going to come all the way down to fill the gap, go all the way down to like 196, and maybe try to bounce off this previous resistance and try to push all the way back up. But you have to watch this previous resistance, which is going to become support. So what am I seeing for tomorrow? It's very hard to predict, guys. I really don't know exactly how it's going to play out because there are going to be some people trying to FOMO in at the last minute, but at the same time, technicals do look a little bit more bearish for the stock. The odds are favoring, however, that we're most likely going to see Tesla slow down a bit tomorrow, and we're most likely going to come down, retest this 200 area, and then eventually fill the gap. We might fill this gap, get very close to this previous resistance wedge. Maybe we could get to the very, like the 190s, maybe the mid 190s, somewhere around there. Then Tesla might bounce around there tomorrow and actually close a little bit in the red, but not too red. Maybe just somewhat red, just like how it did today. Not too bad. And I do think we're going to see a slight sell off right before the investor day because of a lot of people securing profits and many of the big hedge funds, institutions starting to sell and reposition themselves and start to hedge during times like these. So that's what the odds are favoring for Tesla. Once again, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I just want to make it clear that you should be very careful because a lot of people are uncertain about what's exactly going to be announced. And it wouldn't be that good if we just explode right before instantly. It's better if we pull back a bit, we kind of just consolidate, we get ready for the event. So we have a nice, very, very keen reaction to it, right? I would rather see Tesla pull back a bit and then just kind of cool off a bit, just slow down and chill before the big event instead of it just exploding instantly. That would be a lot healthier, in my opinion, because of the fact that we want to wait and see what happens first, right? And I do believe that Tesla is going to be very, very active in the after hours. So please be ready for that if you are trading during that time. And with that said, I want to just thank each and every one of you for listening. So I'm prepared for anything. There could still be lots of buying tomorrow, but I'm just noting to everyone, I think it's a little bit less likely that Tesla is going to push all the way above the highs we made today. And we're more likely to see this bearish structure play out. We're more likely to fill this gap and possibly bounce off the previous resistance, which is now going to become support. This trend line right over here, we're likely going to try to retest this and actually bounce somewhere in the mid to maybe even low 190s. Completely fine, nothing that like scares me too much. And as long as we close pretty close to where we are, we should bounce off that trend line and close not too far from where we are, maybe a little bit in the red. That's completely fine because then we're just going to be watching Investor Day and then Tesla will react to that later on. So I hope this is very clear. I want the best for everyone out there. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll most definitely see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon because the long term future is still incredibly bright. And peace out.